Alexander Murdaugh in court again. How many more times are we going to see this guy in court?
Well, things didn't quite go as expected for Murdaugh. And if he was hoping for a brighter future, that doesn't sound like what he's getting. The judge came out and said, "No trial for Mr. Murdaugh." I'm Lainey Law.
And I'm attorney Andrew Myers.
So we thought that this was going to be a much bigger development. We thought there were going to be 3 days, and it sounds like things did not go as expected. It looked like there was some questioning that was not done by the judge. So Andrew, what exactly is going on?
Well, it was fast. The South Carolina court did, in fact, Colleton County Court said we're going to have a 3-day hearing. They set aside 3 days in the end of January for a hearing as to whether Murdaugh would be successful in his motion for a retrial. The whole thing started right after 9:30 in the morning, but it was done by 5:30, 6 o'clock. Everybody went home for dinner. And in the end, do you remember the old Seinfeld show and the Soup Nazi?
Mm-hmm.
In the end, the judge said, "No retrial for you." It was a long day. The judge questioned all 12 of the jurors. One of them had actually been questioned on Friday the week before because of some kind of a scheduling conflict. But all 12 jurors were questioned. They were questioned off camera because jurors, of course, are afforded total confidentiality. The judicial system does not want to expose jurors to any undue publicity, even though 3 of them right after the trial back in March of 2022 went on the Today Show. But with respect to the other jurors, 9 of them, total confidentiality was afforded to them. The judge gave them letters, and only one of them, who had been designated Juror Z, had come out and said, yes, she heard Becky Hill say some things and answered yes, it affected her final verdict. So the day started out, I'm taking notes. This is going to be really something here. And then Richard Harpootlian, actually, no, it wasn't Harpootlian. It was Creighton Waters, the attorney for the Attorney General's office, came out and said, wait a minute, hold on. You did an affidavit here. And let's read your affidavit. Your affidavit said that your pressure was not from the court clerk, Becky Hill. Your pressure was from the other jurors, right? What's the difference? Well, the case law says that just because you're pressured by the other jurors to reach a certain verdict doesn't mean it's improper. The only thing that we were looking for here, or the court in South Carolina was looking for, I should say, was pressure from Becky Hill, or that some improper comment by Becky Hill was the changing factor in your determination of guilt or innocence. So it started out with a bit of a fight, but that was kind of tamped down. And then, the other jurors that went along 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and pretty much, although a couple of them said they heard her make some statements, none of the 11 said that there was any kind of prejudicial effect on their determination of the verdict. So that portion of the hearing was, I don't want to say boring, because nothing about the Murdaughs is boring, but it just kind of went along. And I'm sure that Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys were rather disappointed, because back when they said there were all these allegations back in the fall of 2022, this was a bombshell. This was something that trial attorneys said, wait, what? We've never faced anything like this. And then the defense attorneys Harpootlian and Griffin saw the whole thing fizzle right before their eyes.
Do you think that this is going to affect Becky? Because there were some people that did say there were certain things said. Do you think that she's going to face any repercussions because of that, even though nothing really came out of this?
That is the question of the day. Rebecca Hill, the court clerk in Colleton County, who was elected, the alleged comments by her were the impetus for all of this. And in the end, the jurors kind of shrugged it off and said, yeah, not so much. But despite the fact that Judge Toole, who had been brought in to take care of this hearing, had said she didn't really want to hear about it, she allowed Becky Hill to be placed on the stand. And the questioning went much further than Judge Toole originally said she was going to allow. Originally, I remember Judge Toole said that, she didn't really care why Becky Hill was making these comments. Her motivation was not important. It really didn't make any difference, to her. The only thing that was important was whether it was biased. But it was almost like Judge Tolle, as much of a hardball as she really was, and I think I'm being very fair to call her a hardball, she allowed questioning of Becky Hill. And all the attorneys questioned Becky Hill. But it was kind of like trying to nail Jell-o to the wall to get her to admit anything. She denied any knowledge of, making any comments to the jury. She denied, making comments at all to the jury. And Dick Harpootlian questioned her repeatedly, and he just couldn't get a straight answer out of her, even on one subject. Apparently in the book, Becky Hill had said that her grandfather and Harpootlian's grandfather were friends. Now, remember that this is a small town and it's a small county, so everyone knows everybody. And we all know about small towns. And so Harpootlian was asking her about that and was saying, well, are you saying that our grandparents were criminals? And he couldn't even get her to admit what she said in the book. So let's listen to that.
You also indicate in the book that the Murdaughs had a reputation of criminality, I think, is kindly what you put. Did you not?
Well, Mr. Harpootlian and my grandfather and Old Man Buster were very close.
Well, were they criminals?
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. But you believed and you published that the Murdaugh family had run that part of the state and they'd been participated in criminal conduct, correct?
Your Honor, again, I would object to general testimony about the alleged criminality of this family. I'm not sure how that has any bearing on the focused inquiry before the court.
He's asking about what she said in the book. I'm going to allow it.
Yes, sir. Did you say that in the book, that they were criminals?
In the book, that was more of the literary ease that we take, I think, to make a story a little more interesting for the reader.
By calling people criminals. I guess what I'm saying is this. Were they criminals?
Your Honor, again, I object to that particular question.
Overruled.
Were they criminals?
I wouldn't know that.
Okay, so you either made it up or you're lying about it? About the reputation of people that can't defend themselves? They're dead? You're going to call them criminals? You did that in the book so you could sell a book?
No, I didn't do that to sell a book.
What'd you do it for? Made it more readable, you said? Which sells books.
Literary ease. Yeah.
What?
Literary.
Literary what?
The literary ease that you can take when writing a book.
Literary ease you can take with writing a book? You can make stuff up? You can lie? You can lie about people?
Not with that. I think the public perception was one that it was very interesting during this time.
So you're feeding the monster out there that wants to believe bad things about the Murdaughs.
There's a new word. Stop the press at the dictionary factory, because literary ease. I think what she meant to say was literary license. I mean, if you're a fiction writer, not writing a documentary book, but if you're writing a novel, sure, and you're describing a little town somewhere, you can say, oh, it was this or that or the other. But I don't know. So as you can see, Creighton Waters, the attorney for the state, tried to shut it down. He tried to, having, as you pointed out, having the judge in advance saying she did not want to get into all this stuff about Becky Hill. Creighton Waters jumped up repeatedly and objected, and the judge said overruled. I guess curiosity got the better of it.
I mean, it's funny because the judge was originally supposed to be the one asking the questions, and they kind of just let him go for her throat. But it was also interesting too, because he was asking these questions, and I guess you can't defame a dead person technically. So theoretically, she could say whatever she wants. I mean, legally. You could say Abraham Lincoln had 7 arms. You can't defame a dead person.
Well-
I don't know if that's defamation.
I think the judge finally she did say, yeah, Becky Hill was going to be allowed to go on the stand, but only with respect to her acknowledgement of, anything that she did in fact say to the jurors. And she didn't want to get into her motivation. She didn't want to get into the book. She didn't want to get into the fact that the book was pulled off the market because some of it was plagiarized. She said all of that's irrelevant, and she didn't want to get into it. So Creighton Waters seemed to be somewhat frustrated that Mr. Harpootlian was, going down a road that had not been foreseen. So the ones that were going to be off camera were the jurors, but Becky Hill was always going to be allowed to be on camera. It was just that the testimony was going to be limited to one area. But I think the judge figured, well, we have time. I want to wrap this up by the end of the day, but I have a little bit of time, so I do want to hear this. That's my read on it. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. So then Creighton Waters had his turn, and he became even more frustrated. He wasn't able to nail her down any more than anyone else. So here's what Creighton Waters had to say when he got his crack at Becky Hill.
Direct question.
Did you lie in your book?
No, I did not.
Thank you. At any time, did you have any conversation with any juror in which you tried to influence their decision?
I did not have a conversation with any juror about anything related to this case.
Okay, something that's kind of interesting at the very end of the trial, it wasn't a trial, the very end of this hearing, the judge said that she found that Rebecca Hill, and there's the judge all the way over on the left, she had her own questions for Rebecca Hill. She said that she found Rebecca Hill not credible. Now, that's the nicest thing you can say in open court with a transcription being made. That's the nicest way you can put it in open court. But she said that she didn't find that Rebecca Hill was credible. Now,
She did not pass the vibe test.
no, she didn't. So now, I guess the next question for all of us is, what is ahead for Mr. Murdaugh? I mean, the defense team, Harpootlian and Griffin, had questioned everything. They started the day out even with questions about, how things were going to go, which juror was going to go, whether they were going to bring in the affidavit or not. And I guess after they jumped up and objected to everything, they realized that they weren't going to get very far. Before the hearing had even started, the judge had submitted, these are the questions that I'm going to ask. This is how it's going to go. Well, the law office of Mr. Harpootlian sent in a lengthy single-spaced letter objecting to those questions and saying, we don't like those questions. We want to, have you ask these questions. So where we are in this case now is that Harpootlian and Griffin were objecting to everything, both on the record and in correspondence before the hearing. So they were marking this for appeal. There are 2 levels of appeal above this. There's a level to the South Carolina Appeals Court, and then above that is the South Carolina Supreme Court. So you can bet whatever you have that they will appeal this. And what are their chances? Well, they argued that there was some different case law that applied. And they were arguing that the judge should not have been making a determination as to whether or not the verdict was actually impacted by any improper contact by the court clerk. Their argument was that the case law they cited said that if there was any improper contact at all by the court clerk, there should be a retrial. So yes, there's going to be an appeal. But the question is whether the appeals court and the Supreme Court of South Carolina agree. And then even as we had said before, so what? He gets a retrial. In my view, and it's not just me, in the view of a lot of people, the evidence was just so awful for Mr. Murdaugh that even if he gets a retrial, I think his boat is sunk. I'm sorry. Bad analogy.
It's a mess. I mean, I think it's kind of, I don't know, like Becky Hill apparently had like a co-author for her book. I feel like there's a unnamed third co-author that was ChatGPT. The whole thing is just ridiculous. It's like the making up parts of the book, the copying parts of the book. You know, I agree with you that they're probably gonna try to appeal this to hell and back forever and ever, but they had a good opportunity to, is the thing, and this could have been something that was all done and over with, but just having the unlucky court clerk, you know, being appointed has made this become infinitely longer and go on infinitely longer than it has to.
Well, I think to indicate how the state of South Carolina feels about this, and that they think the whole thing is over, Alan Wilson, the actual attorney general for the state, was there. I meant to point him out in one of our previous videos that there he was right behind right behind Creighton Waters with the whole bank of the attorneys for the state. The state attorney general was there, and the state attorney general is usually someone that is in the office back in the state capitol. He sets policy. He looks at the budget. He deals with legislators. He makes sure that, you know, the litigation department is doing what they're doing. The Department of Regulated Utilities is doing what that's the attorney general's job, is to administer the office and oversee it. But there he was. And as you know, in the actual Murdaugh trial back in 2022, he actually took a witness and helped to try the case. So that's how important this case is for the state of South Carolina. And they would like anything other than a retrial, because a retrial could go another 6 weeks, as the initial trial did. And it's very likely, in the eyes of many observers, including me, that it would have the same result. So was this whole thing a waste of time? I hate to say that. We have to make sure that justice is done correctly and that everyone gets a fair trial no matter what. But what a way to get there. What a way to get there, you know?
This could have all been avoided. This could have all been avoided if there weren't digs, if there weren't people saying things that they shouldn't have been saying. I mean, I think that this is a case that should have been done and dealt with. Yeah, it's interesting seeing, I guess, like the misconduct, that they had the misconduct, so they had evidence of that misconduct, but that because it was the jury pressuring the other juror, that we don't get to count that misconduct, which I'm glad, you know, I mean, we're going to see where this goes, but that was an interesting facet of this that I think is going to be very significant.
Plus, don't forget, even if, and this is a big if and a big even, it's a big even if somehow he got a retrial, and even if he was found not guilty, which isn't going to happen, he has already pled guilty to all those financial crimes, and he's already been sentenced to 27 years. So the man's in his early 50s. That takes him up to 80. So he's already, you know, in prison until he's 80. So I hate to say that they're spinning their wheels, because, again, justice has to be done correctly. But, you know, a good question was asked during the hearing. I was watching the hearing on a YouTube channel that had one of those chat bars on the side, and one of the chatty chats said, who's paying for this? And that's a good question, because nobody really knows. The person that was monitoring, hosting that YouTube channel that day said, we don't know, because, you know, at one time Murdaugh had a lot of money, but that money has been, you know, taken from him to repatriate people that he robbed money from. And so all you can say is, you know, maybe he has friends. You know, he's been with Harpootlian and Griffin for years and years and years. He's been with other, I mean, he was robbing money from his best friend who went on the stand and just was shaking his head. So, you know, all I can think of is, and it's not a good thought to have, but, you know, people that have that kind of money sometimes hide it. Did he hide his money in Bitcoin or in another foreign country or in South America or somewhere? Did he have money that he hid and he knows somebody that can access it to pay for the defense? Because, you know, I don't know. A lot of times a young attorney will take on a huge high profile case because it'll give them a name. You know, you get out of law school, so what? You know, thousands of other people got out of law. The year I got out of law school in Boston, my law school was one of at least a half a dozen schools in Boston. And even if only 60-70% of them passed the bar, there's still thousands of new attorneys. So I know how that felt. 30 years ago. I was a young attorney that nobody knew. So a lot of time, my point in going into that long, overly excessive story is that, a young attorney who wants to make a name will take a case like this. Well, Harpootlian is pushing 80, if not 80, and Griffin has been around for a million years. So they don't need this. They don't need this. Plus, Harpootlian not only is a well-known aging attorney, he's also in the state legislature. He's a state senator in South Carolina. So I don't know why he needs this. It might just be fun for him. I don't know. It might just be fun for him.
Let's see how long we can drag this out and how successful we can be at dragging this out. That's the street cred right there.
I really don't know. Because when you're young, you have sleepless nights when you try a case. Your palms sweat. You sweat. You're nervous. You're scratching your head. But at his age, I hate to say this, but after you tried a lot of cases, it can be fun. It can be fun. So I don't know if he's having fun trying these cases, or if he just feels that strong of a bond to Murdaugh, or if he really believes that Murdaugh is innocent. I mean, after the Bubba tape, I have a hard time thinking that anyone thinks that the man is innocent. But they're out there. They're out there. So I don't know. Those are my closing thoughts. I can't imagine why this is going on. I can't imagine that the appeals that will come, I can't imagine that they would be successful. And I can't imagine putting the state of South Carolina to another trial that could, again, last another 6 weeks. Because it's not like you can make the defendant pay for it, because where's his money?
The whole thing is crazy. I feel like a year from now we're still going to be talking about this. It doesn't seem like there's any chance of letting up. And like you said, is it fun? Where's the financial benefit? I don't know where to begin with this.
Maybe somebody also write a book. Becky Hill already took a shot at writing a book. She screwed up by plagiarizing it, and it was taken. I tried to get a copy of the book. I went on Amazon.com and it's not available. It is not available. They pulled it off the market. There's still a page for it. You know how you go on Amazon.com and you're looking for a book, and they have a page describing the book. They have a picture of the cover of the book, and they have a couple of reviews that you can read. And they say the book is $29.99, whatever, or you can get the Kindle version for $10 or whatever. All of that was there, but the availability, the book is just not available. You cannot get it. They pulled it off the market. And I actually said in a previous episode, if somebody has it and they'd send it to me, I'll pay you a couple of bucks, not a lot. But I like to read. I just love to read it out of pure interest. I would just love to read it. But so what I'm getting at is that maybe Harpootlian and Griffin will write a book, or maybe they have a paralegal that wants to write a book. Maybe they know somebody that would like to write a book, because it is a story that is just tragic, but fascinating. There is a YouTuber by the name of Eric Allen who has done some incredible podcasts, or they're more like documentaries. And I think they're better than any of the documentaries that have been done by the big networks, all of whom have taken a crack at it. But, Eric Allen has already done a really fantastic job of documenting all of this, going back to the horrible Satterfield case, the case of the young man who lost his life along the side of the road, the case of the boat accident. And his videos are just awesome, really awesome. So there's really no need for a book. But I'm just guessing. I'm speculating, as they say, as to maybe that's what Harpootlian and Griffin are up to. Maybe they'll write a book. Who knows? All right, those are my closing thoughts. You have any, Lainey?
No, I mean, I'm going to be writing a book on this case. If anybody wants to buy it, it's not going to be plagiarized. It's not going to have fake story. I'm not writing a book, but I was waiting for it. I could probably write a better book than Becky Hill. I'm just putting that out there, and I'm not even in the courts, jury, whatevering, not tampering with anybody. But I'm just putting that out there. But thank you guys for watching.
No book.
No books.
No tunnels. No book.
No.
Have a great day. You have been watching About the Law, a production of the law offices of Andrew D. Myers in Methuen in the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts, and in Derry, just outside of Manchester, New Hampshire. Remember to click the like and subscribe buttons down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your friends and others. If you'd like to talk to me about an injury case, a car accident, a slip and fall, a serious bodily injury case, or some other case, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you. You can contact us through my website at attorney-myers.com. We have a contact us block, or you can call on one of the telephone numbers we've given there, or you can email me at andrew@attorney-myers.com. The foregoing is offered for informational purposes only. It is not intended as and does not constitute legal advice. Laws vary widely from state to state. You should rely only on the advice given to you during a personal consultation by a local attorney thoroughly familiar with state laws and the area of practice in which your concern lies. This podcast must be and hereby is labeled advertisement in some jurisdictions.
No books.
Did you lie in your book? Did you lie in your book?
No books. No copyright infringement.
No
No.
book. But there are tunnels. There are tunnels.